Any other items? If not, the chair would look for a motion to adopt the agenda with the addition of 106A, please.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Chair would look for a motion to approve the minutes of the July 21st, 2008 City Council meeting.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We do not have any awards or recognitions tonight, so we will go to general public comment items. And this is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at this evening's meeting, with the exception of placement on the agenda by the unanimous vote of the council members present. We do have some speaker requests for this time period. We have Brenda French. And Brenda, if you could just identify yourself for the record, please.
Sure, I'm Brenda French. I'm on the Mayor's Committee for People with Disabilities. So I'm here to present two letters of recognition. One is for Mayor Hanks. We would like to identify you as a person of action, and if I could read a letter. Okay. On behalf of the Mayor's Committee on Disabilities, I'd extend a thank you for your personal efforts to improve and upgrade city services for the disabled citizens of Rapid City. Our committee is pleased that the city has made changes in the transit system, as well as the numerous changes to municipal facilities. These changes allow more disabled citizens better access to services in the community. This Mayor's Committee is sincerely appreciative of the city's support of our activities and salute you as a person of action for your efforts on behalf of the disabled community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I also understand you have a second one.
I do, and that's for Rich Sagan. Is he here?
Rich, you got to come up front. We got to embarrass you, so you have to stand there. Yeah, you're good right there.
This is good.
Hello,
Okay.
sir. Rich, on behalf of the Mayor's Committee on Disabilities, I extend a thank you for your personal efforts to improve and upgrade the transit buses for the disabled citizens of Rapid City. Our committee is pleased that you have been able to make these changes in the transit system that allows more disabled citizens to be more mobile. The Mayor's Committee sincerely appreciates the city's support of our activities and salute you as a person of action for your efforts on behalf of this disabled community. Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
You guys hear from me all the time, but I'm going to make Rich actually say a few words.
Guess I'm put on the spot here, but I really enjoyed my time working on the Mayor's Committee. I think we've made a lot of strides in the last 3-4 years as far as getting some accomplishments done. I look forward to several more years working with the committee. I think this last year has been particularly rewarding for a lot of us on the committee itself. We've seen the last 2 ADA picnics we've attended, I think, have really been a nice addition. And some of the things we're doing transit-wise, too, I think are going to be really important down the road for the community. So, thank you very much.
Mayor Hanks, if I could say something. We appreciate Mayor Hanks and the City Council at the barbecue as well, and there was many in attendance. We appreciate everyone that came. The ADA picnic, I hear the basketball team for the fire department is going to play our ADA Mayor's Committee on Disabilities for people this year, so that's going to be awesome. And Mayor Hanks also suggested, which we really appreciate on the committee, that we have an ADA improvements at the Civic Center Day where they actually get to go in and see the improvements and see what they're doing when that comes about, and Brian thought that was pretty awesome. So we appreciate that from the mayors as well, and thank you, Brenda.
Thank you. Yes, and I played the drums, right?
Yes, I heard.
And no, I cannot play the drums very well. Very good. Thank you, Brenda. Just a point of notice, we are planning to actually have, I believe, our November meeting over at the Civic Center to actually take a tour of the new facilities. And so I believe if any of the council members would like to join us, we'll get you that date. But once the new arena is close to completion, we'll actually do a tour and actually show off the new theater and also all the ADA compliant features of that new facility. Thank you. We also have a speaker request form from Lynn Katie. And let's see, then it doesn't say what it's about, so I'm just going to let you see. Truck route, Sheridan Lake Road. Very good. Thank you. And there again, Lynn, we know who you are, but if you could just identify yourself for the record, please.
I'm Lynn Kading, president of Hills Materials. I think I'm here to talk not so much for Hills Materials, but probably for the construction industry and the trucking industry in Rapid City. I sent a memo to the council some 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe it's longer than that, concerning Sheridan Lake Road being a delivery route rather than being a truck route. And this map that I gave you, the green is using Sheridan Lake Road for a haul route. The pink is the way that you would have to travel from the west side of Rapid City to Sheridan Lake Road and Catherine Boulevard per the existing code. 10.9 miles versus 4.1 miles. And in today's economy with fuel prices the way they are, I think that it would behoove the city to look at making Sheridan Lake a truck route. It is one of 2 routes that leave Rapid City and go to a county road that is not a truck route. The other one is La Crosse Street, which is in a pretty easy area to get to on a truck route. There is no easy access from the west side of Rapid City to the southwest corridor in our city. And I think it's doing a disservice to the residents in that area and also to the city when you have a project down in that area. It's considerably longer haul. It's a more expensive haul. The elevation rise is 400 feet more going on the truck bypass road rather than going out Sheridan Lake Road. And you know, one argument that we've heard is that the residential densities on Sheridan Lake Road is high enough that that's a concern to the city. And I agree with that. I think if I lived on Sheridan Lake Road, I would oppose this. But if you look at my numbers over on the right-hand side, Sheridan Lake Road has 16.6 single-family accesses per mile. Jackson Boulevard, that's a truck route, has 19.3, and West Chicago from Sturgis Road to the county line, which is also a truck route, has 80.7 single-family accesses onto West Chicago. So that's, you know, somewhat concerned, but you know, whenever you build a city, it's pretty hard to get moved out without having traffic. And I would be more than willing to work with the Public Works Committee or whichever committee would address this to look into this item.
Very good.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. We also have a speaker request form from Becky Jones. Whoops, I'm sorry. That is on item 40. We'll wait till we actually get there. I'm sorry about that, Becky. Let's see, I do not see any additional speaker request forms for the general public comment period, so we are on to the non-public hearing items, items 1 through 113, and the chair would look for a motion to open the public comment for 1 through 97, please. 1 through 97.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now we are in the public comment period for items 1 through 97, and Becky, if you would, please. And there again, Becky, if you just identify yourself for the record.
I will. I'm Becky Jones, and I am one of Leonard Swanson's daughters. My brother Steve Swanson and his wife Lisa Swanson are also in attendance tonight. And we're just here to express our family's gratitude for considering naming the bike path after our father. He would have been so honored and humbled with your thoughts of him. He was so proud of Rapid City and its beauty that making his legacy a part of its history is very appropriate. We would like to thank all of you, along with everyone else who helped make this possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. You know, it really is a great honor for your father, but I've only met your father a couple times, and knowing your father, he probably say, no, don't do this, but.
He would say that.
He would. Very good. Thank you, everyone. Don't have any additional comments on items 1 through 97. So the chair would look for a motion to close the public comment period on items 1 through 97, please.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. The chair would ask the committee if there are any items 1 through 97 they'd like to be removed from the consent calendar. I do have item 22. Any additional, please turn on your light. Let's go to Karen Gunderson Olson.
Can't find my one. I'd like to move item number 95.
Item number 95. Let's go to, it'd be Bob Dominic.
I ask that item number 94 be moved to immediately after item 145.
So 94 after, I'm sorry, what number?
145.
Thanks, Bob.
Very good. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Item 15, please.
Item 15. Okay, any others? I don't have any lights. So far, on items 1 through 97, we will be pulling item 15, 22, 94, and 95. Any additional? Please turn your light on. If not, the chair would look for a motion to approve the consent calendar with exceptions of 15, 22, 94, 95.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. We are on to item number 15, please. And let's see, that is coming from our Public Works, so Mr. Kroger, could you please read that in?
Item number 15 is to acknowledge the Sheridan Lake Road, Jackson Boulevard, and Deadwood Avenue traffic analysis and route alignment study draft. I would move to acknowledge.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to acknowledge the report. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. In light of the concerns that were raised by Mr. Kading tonight relating to Sheridan Lake Road truck traffic, I'd like to ask our planning director, Mr. Dominic, if he could help us with some advice as to whether that is something that can be addressed on this item tonight, or if it's probably better suited for a Public Works meeting. I was just wondering how we can move that discussion forward.
I tell you, I'm going to go to Monica, and just so you know what item 15 is dealing with a traffic analysis and route alignment, but it's at the very north end of Sheridan Lake Road, and I do not believe it took a look in detail at this section. Is that fair, Monica?
That's correct.
Okay. Alderman Quaker, you still have the floor, sir.
Can we just make sure that that item that was brought up earlier tonight makes it to a Public Works meeting so that for further discussion? I don't think I can offer that motion, but I'd just like to make sure that that is brought forward.
Yep. Very good.
Thank you.
Okay. Additional comments? Additional comments? Motion on the floor is to acknowledge. Any additional comments? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And we're on to item number 22 under Legal and Finance. Alderman Quaker, could you please read that in?
Item number 22 is confirmation of appointment of Nancy Bradsky to the Historic Sign Committee. Yield to the floor.
You want to yield to the floor? I can.
Move for approval.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. The reason that I did pull this was the fact that we do not have a firm commitment by Mrs. Bradsky that she'll have the time, and it was unintentionally included in the Legal and Finance agenda. It was supposed to be pulled, so I would ask that at this time that someone offer a motion to table.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table. No discussion on a tabling motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. We missed that one. Let's see, we're on to item number 94, please. 94. Yeah, and that would be under growth management, so. Oh, I'm sorry, that is correct. 94 has been moved to after 145. Thank you for that. We're on to item number 95. And Mr. Kroger, could you please read in number 95?
Item number 95 is a request by Fisk Land Surveying Consulting Engineers for James Steele for a layout plat located at the northern terminus of Sunridge Road. I would move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
I would like the record to show that I will be abstaining from this vote as Mr. Steele is a client of my husband's.
Okay, very good. So note. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? The motion on the floor is for approval. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes with Alderman Olson abstaining. Thank you, everyone. We are on, that takes us to the end of the consent calendar. We are on to the non-consent calendar items 98 through 113. Chair would look for a motion to open the public comments on 198 through 113, please. I'm sorry, 98 through 113. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are in the public comment period. And for items 98 through 105, we do have a speaker request form on item 105 from Ray Summers from the Journey Museum. There again, Ray, we know who you are. If you could just please identify yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ray Summers, Executive Director of the Journey Museum. I won't belabor the history of the cabin all that much. I think everyone here on the council recognizes the historic significance of the Madison cabin. It was amongst the first 20 or so structures that were built in Rapid City immediately after its founding in February of 1876. By August or so, there were about 100 folks living in Rapid City, and within a few years, our city was growing. It didn't really have a huge spurt of growth until the railroad came here after 1886 and then into the early part of the 20th century. But the cabin survived, and in 1926, after it had changed hands to Mr. Brennan, John Brennan, who was amongst the original founders, and subsequently to his wife after his passing, the cabin was actually donated to the city of Rapid City, and the Fortnightly Club, led by Alice Gossage, who was a very prominent person at the time, proposed to the city that the cabin be moved to Halley Park, which was at that time on the far western extremes of Rapid City. Moved to that location to preserve it for the future and provide a venue or provide a focal point for the history of Rapid City. Many decades have passed since then, and today we are proposing the same thing. The cabin now is not in jeopardy of being lost to the community, but it is isolated from the community by virtue of its current location, which is at the highest traffic thoroughfare in the community. Westbound Main and eastbound St. Joe converge at Halley Park, and it's very difficult, if not hazardous, to try and approach that cabin. We are proposing that the cabin be moved to the Journey Museum to once again become the focal point of the story surrounding the founding of Rapid City. The cabin was, very soon after it was moved to Halley Park in 1928, actually the city's community museum. Today, we would like to bring that back to our community's museum and provide a venue for storytelling, for the similar type of living history as folks that are perhaps aware of Williamsburg in Virginia, that type of a living history experience. We realize that there are some concerns about moving the cabin, but we think that the benefits of providing once again a focal point for the history of the founding of our community would far outweigh any concerns. And I'm here tonight to address any of those questions.
Very good. Thank you. I do not see any further speaker request forms on items 98 through 113. The chair would look for a motion to close the public comment period. We have a motion and a second to close the public comment period. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're on to ordinances number 98, and Alderman Quaker, if you'd read those in, please.
Item number 98 is first reading of ordinance 5415, an ordinance amending section 1706 of chapter 17 of the municipal code for rezoning from no use district to general commercial district located at 4507 South Interstate 90 Service Road. Move approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 99, please.
Item 99 is first reading of ordinance 5416, an ordinance amending section 1706 of chapter 17 of the municipal code for rezoning for low-density residential district to general ag, located east of Catron Boulevard and northwest and south of Wellington Drive. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none. Whoops, I'm sorry. Alderman Bob Hurlbut.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to ask if somebody can address, I'm guessing this is all of the land that falls down from around the Wellington development. Am I correct? And that just preserves that as open space? Is that correct in effect?
Bob?
Mr. Dominic?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that's all I need.
Okay, very good. Further discussion. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
The purpose of this particular change in zoning is not to preserve open space, however. And as we move forward with this, at second reading, there'll be additional information. It's essentially turning this into a horse. I mean, they're going to keep horses on this ag land.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Further discussion. Motion on the floor is for approval of first reading. Yep. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 100, please.
Item 100 is first reading of ordinance 5417, ordinance amending section 1706 of chapter 17 of the municipal code, rezoning within the described properties requested by Brad and Dad LLC for Kent Haig of Mall Drive LLC and Pat Telestis for Bypass Development LLC for a rezoning from general commercial district to light industrial district located north of Mall Drive and west of Dakota Craft Drive. Move approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 101, please.
Item 101 is second reading of ordinance 5409, adding the definition of vertical axis wind turbines by amending section 1704.7.743 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Move approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 102, please.
Item 102 is second reading of ordinance number 5410, revising the sidewalk requirements by amending section 12.16.080 of the municipal code. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 103, please.
Item 103 is second reading of ordinance number 5411, adding vertical axis wind turbines as conditional uses in the medium-density residential zoning district by amending chapter 17.12.030 of the municipal code. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 104, please.
Item 104 is second reading of ordinance number 5412, adding vertical axis wind turbines as an accessory use by amending section 17.50.217 of the municipal code. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 105, please.
Item 105 is approval of a request by the Journey Museum to move the Pat Madison cabin from Haley Park to the Journey Museum. Yield to the floor.
Move
Okay.
for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Bob Hurlbut.
Thank you, Mayor. I simply want to comment that I did touch base with a couple of constituents among the historic preservation folks in town, and this is something that they've indicated support for. And I just want to make sure that we are, that it's known that in moving this is something that's approved by the historic community as well as at the request of the Journey Museum, and I think it's a fine proposal. So thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too am in support of the motion on the floor, and I was glad that Mr. Summers explained the interactive nature of what it is they intend to do with the Pat Madison Museum. I think that interactive experience will be great for school children and adults who aren't as familiar with South Rapid City's early history. And Pioneer Days as well. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. Clearly a great deal of effort has been put into this proposal, and I do appreciate the Journey's efforts at preserving the community's history, not only the Madison Cabin, but in other efforts as well. With this particular proposal, I do have a concern simply because when we move something that's been in a location for 82 years, you know, no matter how interactive the cabin is in its new location, there's still something lost that can't be replaced. And then the cabin was in its original location for 50 years, and it's been at this location at Haley Park for 82 years. And I think that, you know, a lot of people have seen the cabin over the years. A lot of people probably don't know the significance of it, but it is in a high traffic area right now, and I think there would be something lost by moving it from this location. With that being said, I do sincerely appreciate the efforts here, but I think that moving the structure from the place that it's been for so long, it's hard for me to do. And being the nostalgic sort that I am, I have a tough time, you know, moving the cabin, and there would be a lot less people that would see it on a day-to-day basis at its new location versus now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? The motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion passes with 1 no from Alderman Quaker. Thank you. Item 106, please. Alderman Quaker, if you could read 106 in for us, please.
I'm sorry. Authorize mayor and finance officer to sign a lease agreement with MDU for the use of property located at 451 Omaha Street, and I move approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Joel, do you have anything?
I had handed out hard copies there on the dais. We were negotiating. I apologize it was so late. We were just negotiating up till later this afternoon. So if there's any questions, I'm available to answer.
Okay. Any further discussion? The motion on the floor is for approval. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 106A, please. And that was the amendment to the 2012 plan.
From earlier tonight.
Yes.
Item 106A is the amendment to 2012 to take $700,000 from 2008 for the completion of the parking ramp.
Okay.
That is my motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval. And just for clarification, let's go to Mr. Preston. That's actually coming off the bottom line, which is actually unappropriated money within the 2012. Is that correct? Mr. Preston?
That is correct, Mayor.
Okay, very good. Discussion on that motion. Motion is for approval. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I feel slightly compelled to explain my vote, which will be upcoming on this item. We went through a process, invited several people in reference to this 2012 amendment. There was $2.8 million already set aside for downtown parking. We made an amendment, or it's going to pass here shortly, with me voting no. And my reason for voting no is there was a process in place. Earlier, we invited everybody that had some 2012 information, but one particular item, the $2.8 million that's been set aside for downtown parking currently, wasn't even discussed. Those people weren't here. Whoever has that project, be it the Rushmont or whatever it was, I've asked several times for an update on the project, haven't received it, and so I won't be supporting this amendment simply because I think $2.8 million for downtown parking would be sufficient, and we basically went through a pomp and circumstance with no real meaning for the other people that showed up, and I think there's no substances. And so I will vote no for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion. Motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes with 1 no from Alderman Weifenbach. Thank you, everyone. We're on to the Public Works Committee items in item 107, and Mr. Kroger, if you could read that in for us, please.
Item 107 is a request by Dream Design International Incorporated for a vacation for a portion of a utility and drainage easement located at 1118 Alma Street. I would move that this item be continued to August 18th City Council meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to continue this item to the August 18th City Council meeting. Any discussion on the continuation motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 108, please.
Item 108 is a request by Dream Design International Incorporated for a vacation of a portion of a minor drainage and utility easement located at 1128 Alma Street. I would move this be continued to August 18th City Council meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and second to continue this item also to the August 18th City Council meeting. Any discussion on that continuation motion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're on to bids. Mr. Preston, 109. Do you got your overhead working?
I hope so. Ha. Item 109 is the Block 75 parking structure, third level addition project number IDP 081725. Staff is recommending that we award the base bid plus alternate one for a total amount of $2,614,100 to Skull Construction, with the funding source being $2.2 million from bond proceeds and $700,000 from the 2012 fund. Award of bid and notice to proceed are subject to the city entering into a bond purchase agreement for sale of bonds. Just for explanation, the full amount there is needed to pay for construction, design fee, and contingency.
Okay.
Recommend approval.
Okay. We have a motion for approval. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
The total is $2,614,100. Am I correct in that?
Mr. Preston.
Yes, ma'am. $2,614,100.
I just wasn't sure what the amount was.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Further discussion. The motion on the floor is for approval. Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
Sorry, the total would be 2.9 altogether with the 2012, Karen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? The motion on the floor is for approval. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Is it 2.6 or 2.9?
Mr. Preston.
What we're awarding is the bid for $2,614,100 to Skull Construction. I just wanted to make sure when we say the funding sources that the council understands reason why we need the additional funds, and that's to help pay for the sign fees and contingency over and above that.
Okay. Anything else? Mr. Weifenbach, you still have the floor, sir. Anything else? Okay, very good. Motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion? Does anybody wish to speak before Alderwoman Hadcock speaks for a second time? If so, please turn your light on. If not, let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
Just want to clarify it. I understand this is on the bid. It's 2.2 on the bid and 700,000 from 2012, which makes 2.9, if I'm correct, Jim.
Yep.
That's just for Ron Weifenbach's information, so he has the total amount of it,
Yep.
both funding sources.
Very good. Motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We're on to 110. Mr. Preston?
Thank you, Mayor. 110 is the East St. Joseph turn lane at East St. Charles Street, and staff is recommending accepting the bid from Hills Material Company for $63,223.55.
We have a motion and a second to accept the bid from Hills Material. Any further discussion? Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 111, please.
111 is the Fifth Street parking project. We received 2 bids as indicated. Staff is recommending accepting the bid from Hills Material Company in an amount of $94,599.95.
We have a motion and we have a second. Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval to award the bid to Hills Materials for $94,599.95. Okay. Any further discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderman Bill Okrepke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Is that the one right across the street? Is that the parking right across the street?
Sorry, I believe that is correct. Isn't that? That is for the parking over on the MDU site.
Yeah, just across the street from us.
Over here.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, thanks.
That direction. Okay, let's see, have we taken a vote yet?
No.
Okay, motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 112, please.
Item 112 is one new current year model 11-foot high capacity mower for the Parks Division. Received 4 bids as listed. Staff is recommending we continue this item to the August 18th council meeting for further discussion.
We have a motion and a second to continue this to the August 18th City Council meeting. Any discussion on the continuation motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Let's see, we have no items under mayor's items. We did have a couple items. Lloyd LaCroix wanted just a minute, so recognize Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. After item 14, we just passed a resolution prepared to name the bike path after Leonard Swanson and his family's here. And I'd just like to suggest to the council maybe on this special occasion that we take a minute, go down and thank the family personally, and maybe have Jackie take a picture with us, with the family, if that's okay with the council member.
Is there any objection? If not, what we will do is, why don't we do this? Let's take about a 4-minute recess, and we'll go down and take a picture, and we'll come right back up. So we'll be in recess for about 4 minutes. Let's go ahead and take a picture. Question is, who has a camera? Jackie, you have a camera with you? You not?
Hey, Katie. Katie.
Thank you, everyone. Let's see. I also had a request for Alderman Deb Hadcock to just mention where Alderman Chapman, he's out serving our community. You want to make a comment?
Yes, Malcolm wanted me to tell you that he's with, I think, 42 or 48 kids in Chicago on a missions trip, and they are working at the different places for nonprofits down there and doing some awesome work, and he sounds like he's having lots of good time. So I just wanted to mention that he's doing some good work while he's not at the city council. Thank you.
Of course, the reason he's having a good time is that's his home turf. So let's go to Alderman Bill Okrepke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I know this isn't on the agenda, but if you could indulge me for about 30 seconds, I'd appreciate it. As I listen from the dais, I can hear the motorcycles going by, and I'd just like to take a moment and publicly thank these people for coming to Rapid City so they can enjoy our beautiful community and the hills. But on the flip side of that as well, we all need to be careful and keep an extra eye out for motorcycles, because we don't want anybody to get hurt or killed, and so that they can enjoy themselves here. So thanks for coming. I appreciate you enjoying our community, and for the rest of us, please be careful and have an extra eye open for them.
Very good. Thank you for those comments. We are on to staff items. Item 113, and this is the Vision 2012 update.
Nothing new to report. We've made some changes with the Block 75 parking ramp. Really, that's the only change to report.
Okay. Let's go to the council. Are there any questions?
I'd move to table.
I heard a move to acknowledge first. Sorry about that. Move to acknowledge in a second. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
I have a question regarding the soccer fields and the O&M. Trying to read the fine print here, but I'm wondering what the cost will be of maintaining these 25 soccer fields in terms of new FTEs and equipment costs for the city.
Mr. Ellis.
What has been communicated to us is there would be no city cost on the operations and maintenance end of that. That would be done that would be handled privately.
Okay.
Okay, Alderman
Thank you.
Quaker, anything else?
No, sir.
Motion on the floor is to acknowledge. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. Let's see, we are to the public hearing items, items 114 through 155. The chair would look for a motion to open the public hearing comment period on item 114 through 155, please.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. The chair would ask if anyone on the council would like any items 114 through 155 pulled from the consent calendar. If so, please turn your light on. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. Items 130 and 132, please.
30. Don't have to yet. Okay, items 130 and 132. Any furthers? Do you want pulled from the consent calendar, please? Any others? Please turn your light on. If not, Chair would look for a motion to approve the consent calendar, item 114 through 155, with the exception of 130 and 132.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. That takes us to item 130. And let's see, and Alderman Kroger, could you please read that in?
Item 130 is a request by Whittingham Lestrange LPI for a preliminary plat located northeast of the intersection of US Highway 16 and Catherine Boulevard, and I would move that this item be continued to September 2nd.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for a continuation to September 2nd, 2008. Discussion on the continuation motion, please. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. About a month ago, I had asked that we have an update at this meeting as to what the status of this plat is and the related variance. This has been on our agenda for approximately a year and a half, and I think it's only fair to ask what the status of it is. So I was just wondering if we have more information as to what the status of this item is.
Okay, let's go to Growth Management and Bob Dominic. Do you have a indication of what the hang-up is?
The hang-up, as we see it, is that they're just not getting their work done. They've asked to be continued to the September 2nd. We hope at that time that they will have their things put together to let us know for sure which direction it is going to go.
Okay. Alderman Quaker, you still have the floor, sir.
Well, I think we're reaching a point here where the Planning Commission and the Council ultimately needs to make a decision either to table the item, deny it without prejudice, or deny it altogether, or approve it. But to have something languish on an agenda for almost a year and a half, it's a disservice to those on the committees involved, and it's a disservice to the community, especially to those who have submitted public comment regarding these items approximately a year and a half ago. So I think it's at the meeting on September 2, I hope that we have a recommendation to proceed or to dispose of this item in some way, but I find these continuations troubling. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach. There again, continuation motion to September 2nd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can someone tell us, number one, how long this has been continued?
Mr. Dominic, do you have the original? I can tell you it was 07, because if you look at the coding.
And secondly, I would want to know what usually there's a recommendation coming out of Planning Commission.
Okay, let's deal with the motion on the floor is continuation. Let's deal with that motion. Do you have an answer as far as when the original application was?
The original application was made on May 11th of 2007.
Okay. And the second part of Alderman Weifenbach's question is the recommendation from Planning Commission. I would assume that they're the ones that are recommending that we continue this. Is that fair?
That's correct.
Okay. Alderman Weifenbach.
So it's May of 2007 that this, I would have to have some agreements with Alderman Quaker on this, that this item's come forward every time he's asked the same thing. next month, can we bring this to resolve? There's people out there that have a vested interest in this, and I have a feeling that it goes back to, I remember Alderman Olson going through this, and she had mentioned to one of her constituents that we wouldn't vote on it that night, and all of a sudden we voted on it, and then it went against that person. And I have some concern that this same thing might take place. So if there's a way that we could dispose of this tonight, I would be in favor of doing that. And they can go back through the process. I would imagine May of '07 that we may even had some ordinances that changed since this thing went through, I could imagine, but I think that's plenty long to continue an item.
Okay. Thank you. The motion on the floor is continue. Any further discussion on that motion? Any further discussion? Anyone wish to speak before Alderman Quaker speaks for a second time? If so, please turn your light on. If not, we'll go back to Alderman Quaker for a second time.
Is it appropriate to offer an amendment to the motion to ask for a recommendation at the next council meeting? Is it appropriate to ask?
Let's go to Jason Green, our city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe this item is still technically in front of the Planning Commission. I don't believe they've taken action to forward a recommendation. So I would say the answer is no, it's not appropriate to direct the Planning Commission to come to a determination if they're not prepared yet.
Okay. We're going to reel this in because this is the motion on the floor is for continuation. So Alderman Quaker, you still have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm exploring alternative motions, and I think that's appropriate. Is it appropriate, Jason, would it be within the form to offer a substitute motion to deny without prejudice?
Jason Green, city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If the Planning Commission has not made a recommendation on it, then it's not properly before the body, so no.
Okay, Alderman Quaker, you still have the floor. Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, let's go to Alderman Bill Okrepke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Kind of going along with Alderman Quaker and Alderman Weifenbach. If the Planning Commission hasn't seen it, why is it even on our agenda?
I'm sorry. Could you say one more time, Alderman Okrepke?
If I agree with Alderman Quaker and Alderman Weifenbach here, if it hasn't gone to the Planning Commission, then why is it even on our agenda yet? Am I missing something?
Okay. Let's go to Jason Green, city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this item is here because the standard practice has been to bring these to council at the same time they go to Planning Commission to get the required notices and hearings properly noticed and before the council to expedite the process as much as possible. In a case like this, the process doesn't work very well because you have an item on your agenda that's technically not properly before you.
Okay. Mr. Mayor?
Yes, still have the floor.
This is part of the continuation. Can we continue this until after the Planning Commission acts? Would that be an appropriate motion?
Let's go to Jason Green, city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. As I'm looking at the staff report, it appears that the Planning Commission is going to take this up at its August 21st meeting. So your next meeting after that would be September 2nd. So that's exactly what the continuation motion would do, is to continue it until after the Planning Commission acts.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you.
Very good. The motion on the floor is continue this item to September 2nd. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 132, please, Mr. Kroger.
Item 132 is a request by Whittingham and Lestrange LPI for a variance to the subdivision regulations to waive the requirements to install curb, gutter, sidewalk, street light conduit, water, and sewer along Catron Boulevard and U.S. Highway 16 as per Chapter 16.6 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. I would move that this item be continued to September 2nd.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue this item also to September 2nd, 2008 City Council meeting. Any discussion on that motion, on the continuation motion only, please? Alderman Bob Hurlbut.
Thank you, Mayor. I would only ask, there was I believe a gentleman submitted a speaker request, and I would ask if he wanted, I think this is related to 130 as well.
Basically what the comment was is if there's any questions for him, he'd be willing to answer it from the Planning Commission.
And you are?
Skull, Planning Commissioner.
Thank you.
And basically, I noticed you guys were commenting where the Planning Commission stood on that item. Basically said that if there's any questions concerning where we're at in that process, I'd be willing to answer those questions, but I have nothing to speak at formally.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, motion on the floor is continuation, and okay, we will be talking about the continuation motion only, please. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you. I believe it is appropriate to ask our planning commission.
Why don't you
liaison.
address, why don't you ask the question through the chair, and then we'll go from there. What's your question, sir?
Well, my question is if the planning commission liaison would be able to fill us in as to the status of the item, I would most appreciate that.
I was going to say, here's the problem. Motion on the floor is actually continuation. To get back into the main motion, into discussion of the main motion is somewhat out of order. Mr. Skull, can you give us just a very quick synopsis of where this is at? That way we can move on.
Thank you, Mayor. Basically, the issue, this has been continued for quite some time. The reason being is we've been waiting for the applicant to continue to submit his additional information, which they have not done. The Planning Commission stance has been to allow them the time to do so. There's been similar concern what Alderman Quaker has brought up today. It's basically the status. So when Whittingham and Lestrange provides us with proper information, then we'll make a movement upon that time.
Very good. Alderman Quaker, you still have the floor, sir.
Thank you.
Anything else? Motion on the floor is for continuation of item 132. Seeing no further lights, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. That does take us to the end of the consent calendar item. The chair would look for a motion to close the public hearing on items 114 through 155. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Comment? Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. Let's see. Okay, now I have to figure out how to do this. We did not have the speaker request form in, and we've closed the public hearing, including for items 145. Does anyone wish to reconsider the motion to close the public comment period? We have a motion and a second to reconsider. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Jason Green. We're doing this, we're going the right direction. Very good. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor of reconsideration of the motion to close public hearing signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. So we're, okay. I'm sorry, say it one more time, Jason.
At this point, the council is on the motion to close the public hearing. If you'd like to take additional public comment, I suggest you either withdraw this motion or defeat it.
Okay. Is everyone clear on that? Let's do it this way. If you wish to take additional public comment, you would vote no on the motion to close the public hearing. If you do not want to hear any additional public comment, you vote yes. Okay? So, all those in favor signify by saying yes. All those opposed? Very good. Motion fails. We're back to the public comment period. Mr. Shaffey, you had comments on item 145, please.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I apologize for putting the request late. The request was basically to allow for the waiver of the curb and gutter and sidewalk on Sweetbriar Street, which is an existing road. Our client is developing on the east side of the road, and which will be annexed to the city of Rapid City. There are ditches on the existing road on both sides of the road. They handle the drainage. To put curb and gutter and sidewalk on both sides of the road is challenging. After further survey on the east side of the road, we were able to put curb and gutter and sidewalk because it's an existing ground that is not developed yet, so grading can be done to accommodate that. On the other hand, on the west side of the road, or west side of Sweetbriar, and I have a map actually, but on the west side of Sweetbriar, there are existing homes, and if we added a curb and gutter and sidewalk, that will eliminate the drainage ditch that is there, and it will be very hard to get the drainage from the ditch into the curb and gutter and then back into the ditch. And if we backfill behind the curb, tentatively some of the water will go into some of the houses that are there or the structures that are there. So we're requesting basically to allow us to construct the curb and gutter and sidewalk on the east side of Sweetbriar, which is doable, and grant the variance for the west side of Sweetbriar, which is against the existing homes that are there. And that's the request, and we hope that you could grant us that request. I have some pictures and maps if you wish, or if you have any further questions, I'll be more than happy to address them. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further speaker request forms and no one else in the audience, I think we're safe. Chair would look for motion to close the public comment period on items 114 through 155. We have a motion and second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are on to alcohol licenses, item 137, and that'd be Alderman Quaker. Whoop. Hang on a second here. Consent public hearing items. We only have one item? That's why I didn't do a consent, because we only have one item. So, okay, we'll do it that way. Alderman Quaker, could you please read in item 137, please?
Item 137 is Central States Fair, 800 San Francisco Street for a retail wine license. I move approval.
We have a motion, second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're on to item 138 through 155. This is the non-consent public hearing items. Item 138, please. That would be, let's see, that'd be Mr., who reads those in? Public Works. That'd be Mr. Kroger.
Item 138 is a request by Dream Design International Incorporated for an amendment to the adopted comprehensive plan to change the land use designation from office commercial with a planned commercial development to general commercial with a planned commercial development located east of Elkville Road and west of DeGeese Drive and south of Bernice Street. I would move approval.
We have a motion, second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 139, please.
Item 139 is a request by Dream Design International Incorporated for amendment to the adopted comprehensive plan to change the land use designation from general commercial with a planned commercial development to public located southwest of the intersection of Big Sky Drive and DeGeese Street. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 140, please.
Item 140 is a request by Dream Design International Incorporated for amendment to the comprehensive plan to change the future land use designation from office commercial with a planned commercial development to public located southwest at the intersection of Big Sky Drive and DeGeese Drive and east of Elkville Road. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 141, please.
Item 141 is a request by Dream Design International Incorporated for amendment to the adopted comprehensive plan to change the land use designation from low-density residential to public located southwest at the intersection of Big Sky Drive and DeGeese Drive and east of Elkville Road. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 142, please.
Item 142 is a request by Dream Design International Incorporated for amendment to the adopted comprehensive plan to change the land use designation from low-density residential to office commercial with a planned commercial development located east of the northern terminus of Jolly Lane and west Sweetbriar Street. Move approval.
We have a motion and second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 143, please.
Item 143 is a request by Dream Design International Incorporated for amendment to the adopted comprehensive plan to change the land use designation from office commercial with a planned commercial development to low-density residential located southwest of the intersection of Big Sky Drive and DeGeese Drive and east of Elkville Road. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 144, please.
Item 144 is a request by Melanie Lean Palm for an amendment to the adopted comprehensive plan to change the future land use plan from light industrial to general commercial located at 2003 Distribution Lane. Move approval with stipulations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 145, please.
Item 145 is a request by Dream Design International Incorporated for a variance to the subdivision regulations to waive the requirement to install curb, gutter, sidewalk, and streetlight conduit along Sweetbriar Street as per Chapter 16.6 of the Rapid City Municipal Code located east of Timmons Boulevard, south of Neal Street, and west of Big Sky Drive. For discussion, I would move approval, or I'm sorry, to deny without prejudice in part and to deny in part.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for, let me read the motion. To deny without prejudice in part and to deny in part per the Planning Commission's recommendations. Okay, discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Bill Okrepke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I look at the staff and I see a highly professional organization. And I look at Dream Design and I know they're a top-notch engineering firm as well. One says if I put the sidewalk in, there's a potential to flood out some basements on the houses that are right next door to it. Is that true?
Who'd you want to address that to, Bob?
Whoever wants to, whoever's capable of answering that.
Bob?
Let's put me on the spot.
Yeah.
Being in engineering for as many years as I have been, I would say that it could be designed to not flood the basements in the adjoining houses.
Okay. Alderman Okrepke, you still have the floor, sir.
So what you're saying is that it can be designed even though Dream Design International says it's not in the best interest of the area.
That's what I said, yes.
Yeah.
Is there a good reason why, if I may, Mr. Mayor?
Please go ahead.
Is there a good reason why we're forcing a sidewalk on that side when there's a sidewalk already on the other side of the street?
Bob?
It has been the policy, as told to staff, that we are to require sidewalks where there's new developments. And one of the requirements is that they are abutting that street, and so they're required to build the street to city standards, which includes sidewalks on both sides.
Well, Mr. Mayor.
Please go ahead.
I can certainly appreciate the guidance that we've given you, but also it seems to me that we should be looking at it in a more specific area or a specific situation, that if it doesn't make sense, or if we're forcing this on it, that there's a potential for further damage to the houses that are immediately adjacent, then maybe there's room to say, well, maybe we shouldn't be doing that. And I'm going to throw it open to my colleagues here, but it seems to me if there's a sidewalk going in, and if we force the sidewalk on the other side, then there's potential, a realistic potential. I mean, I had flooded basements in my homes. Why do we want to do that to the people that are living there? So I'm going to turn that, get some ideas from my the rest of the colleagues here. Does this make sense? I don't think it does. I wasn't part of some of the meetings that we've had, but I mean, this doesn't make sense.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
I went out there and looked at this, and unfortunately I didn't agree with Bob, even though I appreciated their comments. I think the curb and gutter on the east side is fine. On the west side, I think the variance was okay. If I'm correct, it's a sidewalk that we're putting on the west side. Tell me one more time on the west side what we were doing, Bob. I can read it on here again, but could you tell me one more time if I wanted to switch this where they didn't have to?
Bob?
Right now, staff's recommendation is to have the sidewalk and curb and gutter on the west side. The variance is to not construct the sidewalk or the curb and gutter on the west side.
Okay.
To leave it as a ditch section like we saw out there that day.
Well, and that would be my motion that I'd like to make for a substitute for that reason. If I'm correct, Hanny, is that, could I ask the applicant?
Ask your question, please.
To make sure I'm doing this right, because I did go out there. I didn't want to flood the other side, and what there is there's ditches there now, which it seems like smart growth or this area, the curb and gutter goes all east, and west is nothing. There's no drainage ditches, there's no curb gutter to actually sufficiently take this water. So can you tell me, Henny, at this point, what you were thinking on the west side that would make this sufficient but not flood those areas on the west side?
On the west side, we will maintain the existing ditch. We will enlarge the culvert that is crossing at the bottom of the block, at the intersection of Avenue A and Sweetbriar, to take that water from the west side and across the street to the east side and put it into the detention dam, which is actually a lot better than what it is there today, quite a bit better than what is there today.
And you're not putting sidewalk on the west side as well?
No, ma'am.
Because there will be a drainage ditch there, which would make sense not to put the sidewalk there.
Yes, you're correct.
Okay, so that would be my substitute on the east side to keep everything curb gutter and sidewalk. On the west side, I would make that variance the substitute motion.
Okay, we have substitute motion in a second. And I'm going to look for a little bit of clarification because we have a two-part motion here, and that was to deny in part, deny without prejudice in part, and deny in part. So which part of this motion do we need to amend?
Bob could probably
Bob?
tell you.
The deny portion.
Okay. So the motion on the floor would be, the substitute motion on the floor would be to deny without prejudice in part, and then drop the denial portion. Is that correct? Annie, do you agree with that? Okay, very good. That is the substitute motion. Discussion on the substitute motion. Let's go to Ron Kroger.
I can support the motion, but I do have a question for our city attorney, Mayor, if I might.
Please go ahead.
My question, Jason, would be is when we do something like this and we're requiring a developer or development to sidewalk and pave and sidewalk development that's already been previously developed, and the developer's engineer is stating that he can't do it without causing potential damage to those properties down the road. And we were to require him to do something like that, and 2 years from now, those basements and stuff are flooded out in that other development. Who's liable for that?
Let's go to Jason Green, our city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a pretty tough hypothetical, but my general reaction to that would be if there is a problem with drainage on a site, the developer is ultimately responsible for that, not the city of Rapid City.
Okay.
I and I agree with that, but I mean, but the motion has changed now, but it was to have the developer put sidewalk and stuff into that development, and he was saying that he could not do it responsibly and that there could be damage that took place, and we were to force him to do that anyhow. Then where does that liability fall into?
Jason?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nobody's forcing the developer to do anything to his property. We have ordinances that regulate what must be done if you're going to make certain improvements to property, but no one requires that the property be improved in the first place. So it's my opinion that the liability in that instance remains with the developer.
Thank you, Jason. I could ask a bunch more questions. It's not going to get us anywhere because I do support the motion on the floor. So
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Very good, thank you. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
In looking at this site, clearly this is a changing neighborhood, so streets that have been safe for people to walk on are probably increasingly not going to be as safe as they once were because the traffic is increasing. But on the other hand, I did look at that, but I had some concern. Mr. Shaffey had indicated he was going to improve the culvert that would then take water from the west side of the street to the retention pond on the east side of the street. And I wondered if changing the depth of that barrow ditch dramatically changes what happens to those homeowners on that side.
Mr. Shaffey, do you understand the question? Yes. Okay, if you could answer it, please.
The existing borrow ditch will stay the same except at the intersection where the culvert is enlarged, because there are existing flooding according to the calculations that we performed. The existing flooding is there regardless if the development happens or not. But since we see a problem and we are reconstructing the intersection, we thought we'll improve whatever is there. So we're taking the existing undersized culvert and replacing it with a bigger culvert. And at that intersection, we'll have to make the ditch a little bit deeper just in that corner to accommodate the bigger diameter culvert.
Very good. Alderman Olson, you still have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Let's go to Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm one of the people that was proponent for sidewalks. And to answer one of the alderman's questions in concern to who's going to pay for these drainage things, I can show you areas in Rapid City right now. The city of Rapid City ends up paying for them. well, if the developer makes a mistake and then it comes back and then the city ends up going out, there's one in my area right now that we're working on, Nebraska Street. I spent probably an hour and a half with our public works director in reference to a particular item somewhat related, I mean, not in the same sort of context, where the city council overrode the staff. And now we're paying for, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars of sewer reconnections because there's a difference of 100 yards that wasn't finished because staff recommended it be finished one particular way and the developers wanted it a different way. Well, now the city's coming back and having to fork out hundreds of thousands of dollars to fix it. I think that if our staff is proficient, I mean, we're looking at budget time here of giving these gentlemen 7% increases because they are top of their field and they're making a recommendation. I think we should highly consider it, and we better have a good reason to overturn their recommendation so we're not coming back in 3 to 5 years and having having taxpayers pay for this sidewalk. There's plenty of sidewalks in Rapid City that were, because we overrode staff decision at one point in time, that the city's coming back and rebuilding and putting sidewalks in. I think it's important when we have a highly professional staff that is tasked to make the right decision for the taxpayers and the constituents of the city, that we give them the utmost respect and the utmost credence when it comes to making a decision based on their professionalism. So I would support their recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Bill Okrepke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Bob, I need to apologize to you. We were kind of joking around putting you on the spot. You're doing exactly what we're expecting you to do. We've given you direction. We told you via ordinances or other kinds of ways of communications to you that this is what we expect you to do, and you were toting the company line, and that's what we appreciate you doing. Now at this point, we can look at it and say, you know, you've done your job, you've done exactly what we told you to do, but now we have a chance to take a look at it and make some adjustments that we may feel we need. So I want to apologize for putting you on the spot like that, but you're doing your job and you did exactly right.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. On page 3 of the staff report, third paragraph down, it says, to date, the applicant has not submitted drain information demonstrating how drainage flows will be captured off of lots 2 through 8, block 1 along Avenue A. Is that paragraph still accurate?
No. Thank you.
Please go ahead.
The applicant has submitted additional information today, and we've reviewed it, and it has been approved.
So the information was submitted today?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Bob Hurlbut.
Thank you, Mayor. I would call the question.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to call the question. Are there any objections to calling the question? Are there any objections to calling the question? If not, we go directly to the motion on the floor, and that is a substitute motion to deny without prejudice in part and strike the deny in part. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We better take a roll call, please. I think there are 3.
No.
Sorry. Quaker?
No.
Olson? Kroger?
Aye.
Hurlbut?
Aye.
Hadcock? LaCroix?
Aye.
Martinson? Weifenbach?
No.
Okrepke?
Aye.
Motion passes, looks like on a 6-3 vote. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone, for the discussion. Motion passes. We are back to item number 95, which was moved to directly after item 145. So let's go back to item 95. And Alderman Kroger, could you please read that in for us?
Item 95 is a request by Fisk Land Surveying and
Oh,
Consult.
I'm sorry. Was that 95 or 94?
94.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
94.
Item 94 is a request by Dream Design International Incorporated for a preliminary plat located east of Timmons Boulevard, south of Neal Street, and west of Big Sky Drive. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Karen, your light's on. Did you want to speak to this? Item number 94.
I was really, I didn't know if there's any opportunity to ask a question concerning sidewalks in this, under 95.
Under 94, you mean?
Under 94.
I don't believe so. This is a layout plat, I think.
Thank you. In which case, then I don't have a question.
Okay. Is there, Bob, is there anything about sidewalks in the layout plat?
This is a preliminary plat.
I'm sorry, preliminary plat?
And the reason that I moved that was because it depended on what the vote was going to be on 145 could affect the approval of this preliminary plat. But the information was submitted and the vote was okay to approve this as a preliminary plat.
Okay, very good. Karen, anything else?
My question only arose because under the Planning Commission recommendations for item number 94, it talks about showing the street constructed with curb, gutter, and sidewalk and asking for a variance to the subdivision regulations. And my question was, is it possible to require the developer to create that sidewalk at some point in the future?
I'll try this one. I'm going to look at Jason Green. Do we not have the ability, let's see, is this within the corporate limits? It's not within the corporate limits?
Nope.
Go ahead, Bob.
The east side is, the west side is in the county.
Okay. So I'm going to go to Jason because that really throws a loop into this. Jason, go ahead.
Within the corporate limits, the council has the ability to order in sidewalks when it's deemed necessary. The same ability does not exist outside the corporate limits.
Okay. Very good. Motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 146, please.
Item 146 is to authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign a waiver of right to protest a future assessment for installation of pavement, curb, gutter, water, sewer, streetlight conduit, and sidewalk located at the northern terminus of Sun Ridge Road. Move approval.
We have a motion and second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 147, please.
Item 147 is a request by Fisk Land Surveying and Consulting Engineers Incorporated for James Steele for a variance to the subdivision regulations to waive the requirement to install pavement, curb, gutter, sidewalk, streetlight conduit, water, and sewer along Sun Ridge Road and the section line highway, and to waive the requirement to dedicate right-of-way along the section line highway per Chapter 16 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, located at the northern terminus of Sun Ridge Road. Move approval with stipulations.
We have a motion and second to approve with stipulations. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let the record show that I will be abstaining from voting on this item because this item was brought forward by my husband in behalf of a client.
Very good. Motion on the floor is to approve with stipulations. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 148, please.
Item 148 is a request by Dream Design International Incorporated for a variance in subdivision regulations to waive the requirement to install curb, gutter, sidewalk, streetlight conduit, water and sewer, and to reduce the width of the access easement from 59 feet to 16 feet for the easement providing access to proposed lots 2R of Lot B and continuing the existing access easement on Lot 1R of Lot B, to waive the requirement to install sidewalk along the north side of Canyon Lake Drive, and to waive the requirement to install asphalt, curb, gutter, sidewalk, streetlight conduit, water, sewer, and to reduce the width of the right-of-way from 52 feet to 20 feet as per Chapter 16.6 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, located at 2430 Canyon Lake Drive. I would move to deny without prejudice at the applicant's request.
We have a motion and second to deny without prejudice at the applicant's request. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 149, please.
Item 149 is second. Mayor, I'll turn these over to Alderman Quaker as the ordinance.
Sorry. Alderman Quaker, if you'd read those in, please.
Item 149 is second reading of ordinance number 5381, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the municipal code, rezoning the described property as requested by Dream Design International Inc. for rezoning from office commercial district to general commercial district located east of Elkvale Road and west of DeGeese Drive and south of Bernice Street. Recommendation is for approval, and that is my motion.
We have a motion and second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Karen Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to be clear that this is in compliance with the comprehensive plan. This change, this, for the, excuse
Yes,
me,
it is.
It is. Okay, thank you very much. Then I'll be in support of the motion.
Okay, very good. Motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 150, please.
Item 150 is second reading of ordinance number 5382, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the municipal code, requested by Dream Design International for rezoning from general ag to public district located southwest of the intersection of Big Sky Drive and DeGeese Drive and east of Elkvale Road. The recommendation is for approval, and that is my motion.
Second.
We have a motion second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 151, please.
Item 151 is second reading of ordinance number 5383, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the municipal code for a rezoning from low-density residential district to public district located southwest of the intersection of Big Sky Drive and East Drive and east of Elkvale Road. The recommendation is for approval, and that is my motion.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 152, please.
Item 152 is second reading of ordinance number 5384, an ordinance amending 17.06 of chapter 17 of the municipal code, requested by Dream Design International for rezoning from low-density residential to office commercial district located east of the northern terminus of Jolly Lane and west of Sweetbriar Street. The recommendation is for approval, and that is my motion.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 153, please.
Item 153 is second reading of ordinance number 5385, requested by Dream Design International, Inc. for rezoning from general ag to office commercial district located southwest of the intersection of Big Sky Drive and DeGeese and east of Elkvale Road. The recommendation is for approval, and that is my motion.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 154, please.
Item 154 is second reading of ordinance number 5386, requested by Dream Design International, Inc. for rezoning from general ag district to low-density residential district located southwest of the intersection of Big Sky Drive and DeGeese and east of Elkvale Road. The recommendation is for approval, and that is my motion.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Item 155, please.
Item 155 is second reading of ordinance number 5402, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code for a rezoning from general ag to general commercial district located at 2203 Distribution Lane. Recommendation is for approval with stipulations, and that is my motion.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval. Approval with stipulations. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Well, Mr.
Move
Preston,
to
bill
approve
list,
the bill
please.
list.
Thank you, Mayor.
Nice
The bill
try,
list that council has totals $7,590,103.94. I would like to add one additional item. This is a Shovelhead Excavating Incorporated for First Street in Philadelphia. It's a change order number 1 final, $8,576.60. Makes a new total $7,598,680.54.
Move for approval.
We have a motion and second to approve the bill list totaling $7,598,680.54. Is that correct, Mr. Preston?
759868054.
Very good. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Oh, Mr. Green, do we have an executive session? before these guys adjourn on me?
We do, and I would appreciate if the motion maker would include as a part of the motion that the purpose is for those allowed by SDCL 1-25-2.
Very good. We have a motion to go into executive session, please.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to go into executive session as permitted by SDCL 1-25-2. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are in executive session. Motion? Seeing none?
Aye.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Not bad. Home for 9:20. Good job.